functionality to download the logos from the web and to actually connect to a real data set instead of doing that gross static stuff we did last time. By gross static stuff, I mean we just said there were 5 sections and there were 12 items, and we always called them Taco Bell space some number, and we always showed the Taco Bell logo. To do this, I want us to incorporate, to use those 2 things that I emailed you, those 2 files. I'd like them to be called dataset.swift and restaurant.swift. And I'm going to select both the files like on my desktop or in a Finder and drag them into Xcode and drop them in my folder. You see what I'm doing there? To me, that's the easiest way of adding files. When it comes to this, when you add files in this way, it pops this box up, and I want to copy the items if needed. I want a copy of those files to be in my project, not just to refer to these 2 files on my desktop, because I'm going to delete them. So now I've got restaurant.swift, which is the restaurant. With one addition. I added a logo URL, which is an optional string. So this is the URL to the logo online. Does that make sense? It's a string that's just the whole URL, starting with HTTP. In the data set, I did a lot of work for you here. I hope you appreciate it. I know you won't. I found a URL. I changed the constructor and made it so that this constructor will be passed in the logo URL if there is one, and I looked up the right one for all these different restaurants, except for the Chow Wagon, which doesn't have a logo, unsurprisingly.
We should just put a picture of a old wagon on there.
Well, in order to show the power of Swift, I pass in nil, which is it's a legal value, right? Because it's optional. The logo URL is optional. So the rest of them have one though. And I create my array of restaurants and return restaurants from the this dummy data set. This data set has a dummy data set static property, which is those restaurants. So now I'm going to go into the restaurant collection view controller and improve the functionality of this. One thing I like to do at the top is create a constant. We can get by with a constant called restaurants, which is equal to the dataset dot dummy dataset. So this is basically, it's like a global constant in this. Well, I guess I could just put it. No, I'll leave it there. That's okay. I could put it in the class. And this is the data set I'm going to use to build the collection view. Does that make sense? So first thing I'm going to do is, how many sections do I have? Just to make it more interesting, I'm going to say that I have 2 sections, and I'm going to put all of my data in the first section, and then we're going to see what happens if we don't do anything to the second section. How do we answer this question? What are the number of items in a section? Well, I want to return, I guess, really in both cases, for both sections, I know this is a little weird, but I'm going to return the number of restaurants that are in the array, a restaurants.count. We'll come back and fix this. So I think I have 7. So there'll be 7 restaurants, 7 items in the first section and 7 items in the second section. If I wanted to be smarter about it, I might say, if it's the first section, then return the count of restaurants. If it's any other section, then return 0. But I want you to see what happens if we don't handle the initialization of the cells. Okay, this is where most of our work needs to happen, which is inside the cell for item and index path method. Previously, we dequeued one of these custom cells that we had, and we typed in Taco Bell space number to the title and looked up this Taco Bell logo. Instead, this is what I'd like to do. Well, first, I'm going to confirm that I'm in the first section. So I'm going to say if indexPath.section equals 0. The parentheses aren't necessary, are they? It's just hard for me to stop. It's just so, it feels so right. So I cut what I had before and put it in here to remind me. I'm only going to configure the cells in section 0, the first section. I don't want it to say this. Instead, I want to find, in the restaurants array, I want to find the number the item, the element at the same index as this index path. And that's, I want to get the index path.row. Remember, an index path is just really a combination of the section and the row. So this will get me the right restaurant out, and I want to get the, I think it's called name, the name property is what I will set the text of the title label to. Does that make sense? Okay. The next thing I'd like to do is download and set the logo image. I'm going to show you how to do this in a way that works, but it is bad. It's going to be simpler code. That's why I'm doing it today. But it is very bad for performance, and you shouldn't do it this way. Everybody hear me saying that. If you're downloading images, you want to do them in the background so that they don't slow down the main thread and make your app unresponsive while they're doing their work. In order to do something on a background thread, to do asynchronous work, there's just no simple way of doing it. It's a lot of ugly code. It's a little bit of ugly code, and I don't want to start with that. We may fix that later. Okay, so that's the disclaimer. Let's do it the simple way first. We have to use several classes in order to make this work. The first thing we have to make sure is we only want to do this if we actually have a logo URL string. Remember that optional thing? And I said even the chow wagon is nil. We do not want to download something from a nil URL. That would definitely not work. So I'm going to say, I'm going to do an if let. You guys know if let? I'm going to say if let logo URL. To be really clear here, I'm going to call it, this is the URL string. So this little, if this variable can exist, I want to get it out of restaurants at indexPath.row, and it's called it's the logo URL. I should probably call it logo URL string. I would say to remind me that it's a string and not a URL object. So if I can do this retrieval, then I want to try to create a URL object based on that string. How do you do that? Like so. This is also going to return optional when I try to create one of these, so I need to put it in an if let to be clean. So I'm going to say if let logo URL equals NSURL parenthesis. So the NSURL is a class that represents URL objects. And I'm going to use this constructor where it takes a string and returns an optional URL. Sorry, I wish I could make this go away. In this, I want to use the logo URL string object. Does that make sense? It's going to keep giving me that error every time, isn't it? Okay, inside this URL object, I would need to declare a data object where I'm going to get data from a URL. And then inside that, I'm going to create an image using the data. Right? This is the easy way. So if data, if let data, the data is going to be, we're going to use the ns data class, and I'm going to instantiate it with this constructor, contents of URL, where I pass in an NRS URL, ns URL. You seeing that? Is that nice? Okay, so this thing is the logo URL. And if that works, at last I can say let logo image equals UI image, and I'm going to construct one of these with data ns data. Finally, at this point, I actually have an image object, and I want to say that the cell dot, what's that thing called? It's called a logo image view. You remember that thing? That's the image view control that I dragged out and put in my cells to remind you it's this thing that's a black box right now. Oh, sorry, a black circle, which was just a built-in image that we had in the project. This is the image view I'm getting, and I want the image view dot image, the image property of that, to be equal to the logo image. So if all these things work, then I will set the image property of the image view to the image object that I downloaded in as data from a URL string. That represents what was here. I'm going to delete this because I don't do that anymore. I think that's all I have to do. Let's run it and see if it works. You guys feeling like it's going to work? Boom! Do you see that? So, Taco Bell. Oh, I got the old school logo for Taco Bell because it has nostalgic value. It really does. So these are files that are not in the project, and they are loading from the internet. Chow Wagon, we don't expect to have one, and we get this default image, you could say, because that's what we set it up in the storyboard. Jax, I must have had a typo in my URL. Oh, no, it's not a typo. I looked at it and realized it's a GIF file, and I guess GIFs aren't supported in UI image view, which is weird to me. So it's a pretty standard thing. Either that or I have a typo. You can check it out. What you see down here, what I wanted you to see just for growth, is that what we have in the second section when we didn't configure any of those cells is what was on the storyboard in our restaurant collection view cell. So probably instead of doing that, I would rather return 1 for the number of sections, and then I won't get that at all. If I'm just going to have one section, then it'll look like that. It's nice, right? It's really nice.
If that image gets deleted off the internet, then no longer works for your app.
That's right. So if you were doing this for real, you ought to be hosting all of your images and all your data on a server that you're in control of, and not hot linking to images off of Wikipedia and using their bandwidth. This is just for educational purposes. Don't do this. That goes double for anybody that's watching this on YouTube that's not in this class.
Shout out.
Shout out to my YouTube students. That's right.
Have you got
All
many,
2 of them.
Have
So
you got many views on your
negative.
Your original, what about your original videos? Did you have like decent views?
Do y'all? It was not 10 years ago. Okay, it was only like 8 years ago, maybe 7. And apparently, there's a lot of people online that would really like to know how to make a table of contents in Word automatically. Do y'all know how to do that? That's what I thought.
Yes.
Figure it out on YouTube.
Do we have that?
That's right, you could.
Do we have a Microsoft Office class here?
There is one, but people don't take it very much anymore because it's not required. Does anybody have any questions on this code?
The error you're getting is why it's not working.
Oh, there's an error?
It's something you have to change in the info.plist because you're not getting it from a secure something. I fixed it online and it works. But yes.
So it's not going to let me talk to HTTP?
It has to be HTTP.
Okay, all the stuff that was coming off Wikipedia was over HTTPS, so I guess that's why it worked. And Jax wasn't on Wikipedia. Somebody needs to get on that. Jax does not have a Wikipedia entry with its logo.
Are you gonna let the students move like that?
Hmm?
Do you get paid by Wikipedia to edit?
No, but you can pay Wikipedia to keep them in business. I don't know if you've noticed.
Hey, actually,
Yeah, they're all on the.
I guess they pay some of their people, don't they?
Well, I mean, some
Really?
people, you know, they have like admins that like all they do.
So if we wanted to make this work, we could change that URL, the Jax URL, to one that's HTTPS, I guess this is security setting in iOS.
I mean, you can change.
Or you could add this item to your info.plist that allows non-secure communication from your app. So that's nice. Does it say even what to put here?
I mean, I can get it too.
That's okay. We can look it up. It's a special key that you have to have with special value. That's what goes in this info.plist. Remember this property list. Interesting. Any questions on this part that we did today? To just emphasize at the end, this is bad because when this function runs, which is anytime the cells are being laid out, it creates a synchronous request to download the image. And by synchronous, I mean the rest of the app is waiting for this to finish before it can continue. So we're actually downloading the first image, completely downloading when it's done, then we'll run the second image and then the third image. So they're sequential. The downloading is blocking the rest of the code from executing, and that's not the way you want to do these kind of tasks that might take a long time, network kinds of things, or even processing things that are maybe slow, or database things. You want to do those things on a background thread so that the UI continues to feel responsive, and when the background thread is done, it will kind of need to get control back on the main thread in order to update the UI. And we may talk about how to do that. We will talk about how to do that later because it's a really common pattern. A lot of people have written libraries to try to make this easier. You just have to use their library to handle some of the ugliness of the asynchronous calls. But they're still jumping through hoops. So we'll see how to do it from scratch. So that's why this is bad. I know you can't tell it because I'm only downloading like 5 things. But if I were downloading 20, and they were bigger images, it would feel really slow, and the app would not be responsive while they're downloading because it's stuck doing the downloading.
6S.
Hmm?
The 6S, I'm just downloading it right now.
Oh, that's 6S. Yeah, I mean, you can just do everything. You can code really poorly if you've got a 6S. So no questions on this?